there's a big gap between somebody telling you something or even showing you how it works and actually doing it, and you'll probably find out lots in that journey. So we'll be sending you a demo app that you can install, and I'll attempt to explain what it does, why it does it, how you can modify it, how you can make it your own. And that'll give you an insight into the kinds of things that you can do with App Studio. So if we start at the beginning then, the premise of App Studio is that if you use MindManager, and we're assuming that pretty much everybody in this call is already a MindManager user, if you're using MindManager, then you've developed some level of familiarity with the MindManager features. So you can do the stuff that you need to do. You can solve business issues, you can create project plans, you can create documents, you can do analyses, all kinds of stuff, all the kinds of things that MindManager is really good at. But to do that, you understand how to fly MindManager. You can turn its features into solutions for whatever you need to do in your business or for your customers. Above that, to do all of that, you've got all this stuff in the light grey boxes, which is your unique know-how. That's your knowledge. So you know which MindManager features to use at the right time in the right way. You've got methods for managing complexity, so you can turn complex and complicated ideas into diagrams, into trees. You can manipulate them, you can have a process. You understand what you actually need to achieve, what the business and stakeholder needs are for the piece of work that you're using MindManager for. And you've got a process for working through all of that and addressing the business issue. Now, all of that sits on top of the product, on top of the features which are in the product. And that's where the product documentation ends, that level there at the bottom. And everything else is your own unique know-how of how to apply MindManager. If you're working in a team, in an organization, or if you're helping a client and you're using MindManager as part of that, it's pretty difficult to transfer all this unique know-how to somebody else. They can sit with you, they can learn MindManager, they can follow the same path that you've been down and understand all the capabilities and everything else. But the idea of App Studio is to make it much, much easier to share this know-how, meaning that if you've developed a great solution for using MindManager, you can turn it into something that somebody else can install and then use at the click of a button. So we think that something like 80% of the business application is custom knowledge. I'm sure most people have had the experience of finding that maps and the process behind them are awkward to share because they can be a personal shorthand and the map isn't the process. And I'm having some conversations on LinkedIn about this with some people. It can be pretty intimidating when someone shows you a huge map and a complicated process and says, well, click here, do that, move this over here, run this macro, whatever it is to complete your piece of work. That can be pretty hard to transfer. So what we're trying to do is get this kind of know-how usable by other parts of your organization, by other team members, not just concentrated on an individual who's developed that expertise over some period of time. The cost of transfer is quite high, and the cost of customizing MindManager is quite high. As probably most of you know, MindManager is highly customizable. It's got fantastic software features and software interface, but that's not really straightforward, and it's not an easy and cheap thing to do. It takes some level of knowledge and learning and teaching yourself how to do that. So it's quite expensive if someone comes along and says, could we have an extra feature in MindManager for our particular business application? And what we're aiming to do is reduce the cost of sharing that expertise with App Studio. So we're aiming to reduce the cost of customizing it by about 80%. So you can do things in hours rather than days or weeks. And what this means is it's economic to share custom expertise. It's economic to make a solution based on MindManager for just one company. You don't have to make it a product. it's even economic for just even one person or a small team of people to do. You don't have to make a product out of it and have a big budget to say we want to adapt MindManager to our business instead of everybody understanding how to use a feature set. We're aiming to make it economic to build a custom solution for a small team or a small company. The other aspect is that software products talk in the language of their features and functions. So they talk about, MindManager will talk about the map index, icons, filtering, all the kind of features that MindManager's got. But really what people need to see is the language of their own business and their own issues. And another aspect of using App Studio is we can create tabs that are in the language of the customer. So you've got buttons that they can directly relate to their business processes and they recognize what it is that they're trying to do without having to interpret that in terms of product features and functions. So App Studio can create custom ribbon tabs, buttons, menu commands. It can install templates and map parts. So you can use macros if you need special functionality. It's all self-contained, so you can create apps for MindManager without any extra software. You don't need a development environment. It can all happen inside MindManager. And you can do a lot of it without any programming knowledge. So you can create apps without any extra programming or macros included in that. And I'll identify in the demo app that we're going to look at just now, which parts have just been configured and which parts have needed some coding behind them. But you can do a lot without writing any macros. And the directions you could take this are, you could start with a personal app that just customizes MindManager for your own needs. So for the things you use every day or the things you want only one click away at any time, you can use App Studio to create an app for that. And then you could extend that to say, what techniques do I use that the rest of the team would benefit from? And you could create a little app for your team, which might be focused around some templates that you all use, you all agree to use for particular business processes or particular approaches to using MindManager and using mind mapping, or even just give access to shared resources. And again, I'll show you some examples of that. Or you could go a stage further and create an app for a special feature. So if you've got some business information in a map and you want to run some process on that, you want MindManager to do something that it doesn't do as part of the standard feature set, that can be added with some macro programming, and you can implement that with buttons and menus in MindManager. Or if you're a consultant and you're delivering solutions for a client, you could implement a business process or implement your methodology if you're using MindManager as something that will be easy for them to install and use themselves. So it goes right the way through from something that is personal to you through to creating an app for a client. So who can do this? Any MindManager user with an App Studio license could create an app without any coding, without any macros in it, just by configuring, just by working inside MindManager, editing maps, it can do that. If you've got macro skills, if you've played with MindManager macros, and it always surprises me how many people have actually done this. And people say, oh, no, I don't program. And then actually they do some stuff. And a lot of people who've done Microsoft Office programming can make the transition pretty quickly to MindManager macros. You can create apps with special programming, special processing functions, or either of those things, either developing an app or writing a macro for something special to do something special, can be done by an external partner. So either Nigel at Olympic or myself can do that, and there are other people who can help with App Studio apps as well. So you don't even have to do it all yourself. You could get some help with doing that. So that's the preamble. That's the context of where App Studio is aimed. It's really for helping to transfer expertise with MindManager expertise with the application of MindManager for business issue, making that easy to transfer, making that easy to package up, give to somebody else where they can install it and use it at the click of a button. So I'm going to do a technical demo now. And as I said at the beginning, we're going to demo an app that you will get a copy of. So after the webinar today, you'll get a link to download a map, which is an installer map for an app that is based on App Studio. And what I've done is I've cleaned my system back to just having App Studio installed. So in the ribbon up here, I haven't got any special tabs or buttons yet. The only one I've got in the advanced tab is the App Studio button. Now, I know on this call we've probably got a mix of people who haven't seen App Studio before and people who've already downloaded it and tried it, or maybe people who've already purchased, which is fantastic. But we're not going to assume any knowledge. I'm going to start sort of at a fairly low level here, and we've got time at the end to ask specific questions. So if you've already got App Studio and you've taken it apart and hit some bugs or hit some problems, then we can dig into those questions afterwards. But I'll start from the blank page to begin with. So the first step, if you've got App Studio installed, if you've gone to the Olympic website and followed the page for installing it there, then what you get is this App Studio button in the Advanced tab, and that's the only footprint of App Studio. So if you don't create any apps yourself, then that's the only point at which App Studio appears. So I'm going to put in a license key to start with. Entering the license key unlocks the App Studio tab. Now, for people who are security minded, I'll just copy this key here, and who are watching the recording on slow motion replay, that license key expires tomorrow, so you've got to be quick. You want to copy and paste that license key. When I do that, it gives me a message saying I've got no MindManager apps installed, and you also get the App Studio tab. That App Studio tab has now appeared, and this is your toolkit for creating and amending and customizing apps. So this is the tab that if you don't see, if you're not going to create apps, you don't need this tab. But if you're going to create and customize your own apps, then this tab is activated by putting a license key into App Studio. What this tab does is it gives you all the tools for creating new apps, for modifying the configuration, creating buttons and tabs and everything else. And if you have a high level key, the base level key lets you create an app for yourself. If you have a high level key, then you can also create installers and share your apps with other people. So I'm just working with the personal level key at the moment, so I can create an app for myself. Now the next thing is to install an app. And if I do a file open here, I've already got an installer map for our demo, and this is the name of this app is Daily Dashboard, and you'll see why in a moment. So if I open this installer map, this is how apps are shipped. It's how they're transferred between people. So if you have a key that lets you create apps and create installer maps, then it produces these installer maps, and you just send a MindManager map to somebody else, and that gives them the whole of your app, lets them install it and use it. So when I open installer map, App Studio recognizes that this is an app installer and offers to install it, since we haven't got it installed. If it was already installed, it would offer to update the existing installation, but it's not installed, so it offers to install. And I click OK, and it pops up with a little dialog here telling me I've just installed the Daily Dashboard app, and it gives some information about how to continue to configure this. And this app has been designed to be configured and customized, so you can go forward with this and start modifying it. So I'll just OK that, and it gives you also a list of all the files that it installs and where it's installed them, so you know exactly where stuff has gone. and it just gives you the file manifest. So that's installed now, and we're done with the installer map. We don't need that anymore. Now what we have in the tab here is a tab called tabs. We have a daily dashboard tab, and it's a new tab in the MindManager ribbon, and it's got some buttons in it, and behind the buttons there's some functionality, new functionality for MindManager, and that is the contents of the app that's been delivered in with the installer map and installed into MindManager. Now we have a fairly special situation in this example, in that normally if you build an app and make an installer map for it and you send it to somebody else and they install it, you don't expect them to modify it. So what I'll show you is the steps to make an app modifiable, make it editable. So if you receive an installer map from somebody else, you can install it, and by default App Studio thinks it's not going to let you modify that app because it's an install map, it's pre-packaged. If you start changing it, you won't be able to uninstall it. But in our case here, we're going to permit uninstalling of that. Now to do that, you go back to your App Studio tab, and we want to go to the folder where this app has been installed. So if I click on Edit App Files, Daily Dashboard, select the app that we just installed. I want to delete. Go to the file here. There's a file called lastupdated.xml, which keeps a record of the last time you updated or installed this app, and I'm just going to delete that because that will allow App Studio to let you edit this app in App Studio now. So that that's gone already. Where's that gone? Okay, I must have deleted that already. So we can now modify the App Studio app. The first thing I'm going to do is change the name of the tab up here. So it's called itself a daily dashboard when it's installed. We'll go to the App Studio tab and go to the apps group, click on Edit Files and click Edit App Config, and then choose the daily dashboard app. You could be editing or have a number of different apps installed, and this dialog lets you choose which one to edit. And what this does is it opens what's called the configuration map. And the configuration map is the definition of what's in this app, how it appears in MindManager, and what it actually does when you click on buttons. And I'll come back to some of the other parts in this, but to begin with, we'll go to tokens. The token is a bit of data that you define once and then you can use in multiple places. And we've got a token called client, which is defined in a topic here, and it's defined with some properties. Now further down in this configuration, if we look at the tab, the client tab, the name of that tab is that little token. It's in curly brackets called client, which means that whatever we've defined for this token here will be the name of the tab in MindManager, which is Daily Dashboard today. So I'm going to change that. Let's going to name it after my company, which isn't really Acme Corporation, but for people who remember Mad Magazine from the 1960s, everything was called Acme Corporation. So I'm going to change that to Acme Corporation. So I've now made a modification to the configuration map, and if I now click Rebuild Configuration, then App Studio rebuilds that configuration and reloads it. And we're now called, the tab is now called Acme Corporation. So when you get your daily dashboard map, the first thing to do will be to change it after your company name. The next thing to do will be to suppress this sign-on event. There's an event when the app loads that pops up this dialog, and to stop something or to make App Studio ignore it, we can just mark it with a block icon here. There's a button in the App Studio tab. We block that topic, rebuild the configuration, and it rebuilds and reloads. But this time we don't get the pop-up dialog telling us about the app. So that's the first thing to do. Now, the app was installed between the File and the Home tab, and we might want it in a different place. I've got it before the Home tab by default. If you want to put it in a different place, you can simply open the topic that represents the tab, and here we've got the URI for that tab. But you don't even need the URI unless you're trying to target a specific tab. If I change the name of the tab that this is installed before, if I put it before the Format tab, I can just type Format in here and then Rebuild in the App Studio tab. And we now get the Acme Corporation tab in front of the Format tab. So you can control the order of tabs in the same way you can control the order of groups and the order of buttons. You can even insert groups and buttons into existing tabs by looking up the URI. So that's a couple of modifications straight away. We changed the name of the tab, we changed its position, we've suppressed the sign-on event. Now let's look at the tab itself, Acme Corporation tab. What we've got in here is a couple of maps, a template, a couple of tools for MindManager, and then some information about the app and some links. The Daily Dashboard button, when you click on that, it opens a map which is shipped with the app, installed with the app, which can be your daily dashboard, your jumping off point to your projects, your learning materials, resources that you use. So whenever you come to MindManager, and I would say most MindManager users probably have a map like this. It's one of the first things that you do. But this formalizes the processes, makes it easy to access just with a single button click. So that's your daily dashboard map. The other map it installs is a map of checklists. So keeping a list of checklists for technical things that took you half an hour to work out. If you write those down, then you can use them again at any time. And for me, transparent backgrounds in Paint 3D, I forget every single time. It's a month since I last did it. I just can't remember how to do it. So that's one of my checklists. But you could have, I also have checklists for a monthly review, weekly review, things to do to prepare for an online meeting. This is just sort of handy use of MindManager, the checklists, and the daily dashboard app gives you a checklist map that you can edit. So this is a map stored in your My Documents area. So it'll be backed up, it'll be sent to the cloud in normal. You can modify this. That's the checklist map. The next group is templates. And here we've got a two-part button, and we've got a little template that you can either create a new map from, or you can edit the template direct. Now, one of the features of MindManager is you can put your own templates into the template gallery under File, New, but they're not easy to edit from there. You've got to go to the Design tab and find them through the template organizer. With this app, what we've done is we've created a template map, and we've also created a button for editing it directly. So if I click on that button, I get a new map 1 there. So it's an unsaved new map based on that template. So I now have a new map. I can modify this, save it somewhere else. That's normal template operation. But if I want to edit the template directly, I just click that drop down and edit the template. And now I'm editing the original template document and go straight to that. So this isn't anything you can't do in MindManager. This is just making it one click away, much more convenient. So you don't have to stop and think about where you keep your templates and find them, drill down and find them. And this would make it easier for your colleagues if you had, say, a set of 5 templates that you use regularly between you. You just create a little app with those 5 templates in there, and everybody's on the same page, and it's very easy for everyone to use. So that's some maps and some templates, managing templates. We've also included a little tool to show what macros can do. So there's a tool called filter by layer here. And what this does is it's a kind of hybrid filtering of your map, but it does it in inherited filters. So you're not just filtering by one item at a time, you can filter by multiple items. If I open, just do a quick demo of this. If I open this, we've got a map here with some stuff in bold, some stuff in normal text, and some stuff in italics. And the idea is that if you had a complicated map, you could put in bold the things that are really important that you want to show to somebody else. All your normal stuff you could have in normal text, and things that are real detail that only you need to see, you could mark with italics. And then this feature lets you show by layers. So if I show layer 1, I only see bold stuff, I only see the things that are bold. Layers 1 and 2 is the bold and the normal. So this is a combination of filters rather than a single filter. And all layers will add all your details. So your layer 3 or your italic stuff as well. So that's done with a macro. And if we go back to the configuration map, we look under the tabs here, we've got the tab which is now called Acme Corporation. We've got a set of groups, map, templates, tools and help, which are map, templates, tools and help. You can see in the ribbon there. And under tools, we've got the filter by layer button. And under that, we've got the individual commands, including a link to open the help map for that which we just demonstrated. So those are all the, that's a set of commands and related files for implementing a new feature in MindManager. The other place that we've got a piece of software is in menu commands, and these are things that are not in the ribbon. They may be in other menus in MindManager. And the app includes a button for saving a version copy of an app. So in File, Save As, we've got a new command called Save a Version Copy. And what that macro does is it takes a copy of our current map, saves it in the same folder, and appends the current version number to the file name. So you get a unique snapshot of that map at a particular version. So if you're working on something, making changes, but you need to keep track of where you've been, you can save version copies at certain snapshot at certain milestones. Now, if I modify this, if I just change the make some changes to this button here, instead of editing the properties direct, I can select it, go to App Studio, click on Edit Element, and that opens a dialog that lets you edit these properties in context, and it helps you to edit them. And if I click on the image here, it shows you at the moment I've got a particular map, 16 by 16 icon, ping icon. I could change that to a different image. So there's some images already installed with App Studio, others you can add to your app folder, so you can put custom ones in there. So if I change this to a 32 by 32 image, which is the little tools icon, save that, rebuild the configuration, we should see a different icon when we go back to our File Save As menu. File Save As, we now have a spanner and screwdriver there instead of the former icon that we had there. So it's very fast for making changes to apps. And similarly, if I wanted to take that away altogether, I want to suppress that, just block that, rebuild the configuration. That's done. Go to File, Save As. We haven't got that command anymore. So what normally happens when you start building apps is you do something and then you think, oh no, actually it needs to go over there, or I don't need that, or we need something extra here. And the App Studio makes it very quick to iterate around those things. So that's given you an idea of some of the things that you could change. If you wanted to add another template, there's another example. If we go back to our tab here and look under the templates tab, templates group, we've got a small project template. If you wanted to add a second template to this group here, special template, You could begin by simply copying that topic, making a second project. And if I leave that unchanged, we'll now get two versions of the same button. So if I just rebuild that now, we'll see two copies of the small project template in our group. So we've now got it in twice. I could start customizing these commands and the button names here to point out a different template, but the same basic idea, one button plus the parent to create a new map from it, and a separate button to edit the template directly. And you'll see in the commands, the actions here, if we look at the difference between those two, when you were creating a new map from a template, the action is add file. When you're editing the template directly, the action connected with this button is open file. So open will open the map, add file will create a new map based on whatever it is you pointed out. You don't even have to use the template map for that. You can create a new map based on an existing one just by pointing out a MindManager map rather than a template. So that's been a bit of a whirlwind tour of some of the customization that you could do with an app with App Studio. Obviously, there's a lot more in here, but that we haven't gone into. But the point I wanted to get across was you can take an app and you can start modifying it, make it your own, and you'll get a copy of this. Well, we've changed it quite a bit now. As originally shipped, it was the daily dashboard app. In the about section here, there's a map that describes it as originally shipped. So this is a little help map for the daily dashboard app, and it describes the what the buttons do and how it's set up. So you've got that as a reference, but you could start modifying this as you customize it yourself, and this then becomes your help map. The other button we didn't look at were some links. We put in some links in which give you direct access to things like the community board, Olympic Limited, my website, other documentation. You could add your own links to this just by going to the configuration map. Go to the help group here, look at the links. This is the set of links that we've got in the menu here. There's a topic for each one. You could take a link, copy that and paste it, and you've now got another topic that you can edit. You can customize that for your own link, and you can add your own links, or you can remove these ones if you don't need them. So that's a different way to make information really quick to access from the toolbar in MindManager. So I think that that really wraps up the technical demo part of the presentation this evening. As I said, you'll get a copy of the installer map for this app, and we'll also be doing a recording of the webinar. So you'll be able to go back through the recording and follow in slow motion the steps that I did, and start to see how you can customize this, and you can start to think about what you would do if you could create your own MindManager ribbon. What would you have in it that would help you every day, and would even help your colleagues if they had the same buttons in MindManager, that would reflect the way you work, the kinds of business issues that you solve with MindManager, and make it very easy to transfer that to other people. So that's me.
That's you, done. That was great.
Run away fast.
Okay, right. Well, I'm gonna say about the Q&A, but actually we haven't got any questions at the moment to ask. So
There's just a stunned silence.
I think it might be too much. Yeah. Something that I was just I'll ask. I mean, I know the answer to it, but just for those who are watching this, what versions of MindManager is App Studio available for, Nick? Then
it's 2021 and 22. And both the 32 and 64-bit versions, and you have to make sure you download and install the right version of MindManager and the right 32 or 64-bit version of MindManager. So there's add-ins for each of those combinations, and they don't work on each other's systems. You have to get the right one for your right version of MindManager.
Okay, and we've got a question coming here. The question is, can you use add file for non-MindManager files like Word or Excel?
Yep. Yep, you can open any file. So all it does is it passes that, well, correction, if it's a MindManager map, or if it identifies it as a MindManager map template, map part, or macro, or some file that MindManager knows about, it will open it in MindManager directly. If it's something else, then it passes it to Windows and says, please open this for me. So you'll get whatever application is associated with that. So you could have buttons for opening other files. Yes.
So basically, if it's a non-MindManager related file, it will use the default application
That's
associated with the
right. Yeah.
file extension.
Yeah. Exactly
Another,
the same as double clicking on it in the File Explorer.
yeah. Another question we've got, which I think might be a little bit more in depth. What actions is App Studio able to add to an app?
Well, the apps, the way the buttons work is if I open this, this is a topic that represents a button in the ribbon, but it could equally well be a menu command in another menu. If I open that, the actions that can be associated with that, you have a set that you can choose from. So we've got a drop list here, and it'll do things like open files, open folders, open URLs, run macros, run topic, run a macro in the central topic. There's a few options. Or you can view a file locally. If you've got a PDF or a text or an RTF file, you can view that in a pop-up dialog inside MindManager. So it's got a limited set of actions at this level, but if you run a macro, then you've got the potential of anything that a macro can do. So we don't need a huge set of actions at the configuration level in App Studio, because if you can develop or get written for you a macro to do something really special, then you're only limited by what macros can do, not by what App Studio can do. So anything that's sort of beyond a configuration level of using App Studio, you can use a macro to do.
Okay, I've got another message here from Bart. He says, "Thanks, Nick. It seems so easy when I see you click. I must say, at first, I am rather much struggling with building up all the different elements of making an app." I think with that, Bart, I mean, obviously, Nick and I are always here and on hand to help with things like that, if we can. So if you wanted to reach out to either of us and maybe set up a time where we could actually, spend 15 minutes or half an hour going through that with you, then I'm sure one of us could do that for you.
Yeah, glad to do that. Yeah.
Another thing is that, which you'll see about in the moment when we cover the next actions, is there will be more webinars on App Studio. We know that the depth of this is quite complex, so we're hoping to run some more interactive smaller group demonstrations where obviously we'll have open audio and you'll be able to ask about specific things that you might be struggling with using App Studio. So if you're on our list for this webinar, if you stay subscribed to that, you will get details of those when they come out, and obviously with the interactivity of that, you'll be able to actually ask specific questions and see the solutions in real time, hopefully.
Yep.
Message from Alex. He says, will App Studio work with other add-ins? Not quite sure.
Well,
Whether he's...
it won't. It can coexist with other add-ins for sure. To automate other add-ins, they would need to have an interface. So they'd need to have some interface that a macro can reach. Now, some of them do. As an example, the built-in browser in MindManager is actually implemented as an add-in. So the developers of MindManager use add-ins extensively themselves. So a lot of MindManager features are already add-ins, and some of those add-ins do have an interface, and there is a way, for example, to ask the built-in browser to open a particular URL. So some of them do. I wouldn't like to say they all do, but there may be some of them, like say the word export. You might be able to trigger a word export by sending a message direct to that add-in. We need to do a bit more research, try and get Ludo to give us a bit more technical information about those add-ins, because it's not something they ever need to publish or have ever been asked about, probably. But yes, another example is the App Studio add-in itself. You can talk to it with a macro. So once you've got a macro up and running, you can ask App Studio to do stuff for you. You can get more information from it. You can ask it to tell you what the installed apps are. There's all kinds of stuff. So that's got an internal interface that you can access as well. So in principle, yes, add-ins can be automated. It depends on whether the developer has actually implemented any sort of interface for doing that, as to whether that's actually available.
Okay. Another question here from Rob. Is it possible to build a map and then import it into the App Studio system and process it further or tweak it, or is the app build process completely separate?
No, the configuration map that we're looking at here is just a regular map. It's a normal MindManager map. The only difference between this map and a regular MindManager map is this has got some special codes internally. It's got some attributes on the topics that help App Studio identify what it is. But you can take a regular map. If I start an empty map, put a couple of topics in here, I could turn that central topic into I can set it as an element type, so I could say make this the parent topic for an app, and it will put the properties and the internal codes in there, and I could make this element into a tab, ribbon tab, which is the next in the hierarchy. So you can take a normal MindManager map, any MindManager map, and start to turn it into a configuration map for an app in App Studio. And you can also have other information in the map that isn't part of the configuration, just notes to yourself or other task management information about your development. And App Studio just ignores all that stuff. It's only interested in the things that have been specifically marked up as configuration for the tabs and events and everything else that it's interested in. But the map can contain much more information, just as a MindManager map contain more information about a project than just the project tasks.
There was also something about that really that's related. When I was getting started with App Studio, it's also possible, isn't it, Nick? So if you have a command set, a topic like you've got here with a ribbon tab set up with a default structure, you could actually save that as a map part and drag that into your App Studio configuration map. So you could actually create map parts for ribbon tabs, buttons, commands, that kind of thing, and then drag them in, drop them, and then just go in and edit the properties directly without necessarily having to use the App Studio interface. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, using the pop-up, the dialogue for editing elements is just convenient because it gives you drop lists where things have got constrained values, but you can also do it by directly editing the properties as well.
Excellent. Another question we've got here from Jose: is the application available in languages other than English?
I hesitate because the answer is no, but that doesn't mean that the apps you develop have to be in English. It's only the App Studio tab with the editing functions that are in English, but the app that you create yourself, you can use any language that you prefer in the buttons. So it's just the editing functions that are in English today, but the apps can be in any language.
Okay, I think that's cleared that one. Okay, has anyone else got any other questions they'd like to quickly jump in with? Oh, here comes one. Yeah, we've got one here. How do you create a drop-down menu in the ribbon?
In the ribbon, what, like the like this here? Is that okay?
I think so, yeah.
Okay. The
Yes,
way it works.
that is what he's asking, yes.
Okay, great. The way it works is you create a hierarchy of buttons. So the hierarchy here in this example is, first there's a tab, there's a ribbon tab, and then within tabs you have a ribbon group, and then within ribbon groups you have ribbon buttons. And if you continue and put buttons under buttons, that automatically creates a two-part button. It creates a button with a little drop down arrow there, and you have other commands under that. So the way the two-part button is created is to create a button and then create some more subtopics which are also buttons, and the second one, the second level of the buttons, will become the drop down menu as we have there. So it's really simple to do. It doesn't go beyond 2 levels. I might be talking nonsense here. I don't think it goes beyond 2 levels. We could try it if we've got time, but perhaps not now. And unfortunately, the MindManager API doesn't support two-part menus or custom buttons in context menus. So if you have a custom action like this one here I've got in a context menu, MindManager's API doesn't let you add a submenu under that, whereas if it does it itself, its built-in command can use submenus, but for some reason, unexplained reason, the API doesn't support that. But
that would be something interesting to test, because it does do it from the ribbon menu. You can have multi-layered.
Yes.
I think it's also worth pointing out that with regards to those drop downs, I'm right in thinking that depending upon the size of the icon you apply will depend whether you get the drop down that you were just looking at, or which is sort of like a horizontal drop down combo,
that's true.
or you get a dual button where you have a top half with the main action and then a drop down underneath.
Yeah.
So if you use it,
I'm talking nonsense again. Look at that.
You've already done it.
Again. I just did it. And yes, you can have second level buttons. You can have menus inside menus. All I did there was I moved a button to be a subtopic of an existing one, and that's made it a multi-level menu there.
Yeah,
but we don't get an image on that by the looks of it.
No, it doesn't do that. If you've got a sub button on a drop down, you only get the button on the final command.
Yes.
I've noticed that.
Yes.
Okay, well, I think that's about it really for the Q&A. As I say, if you do have any further questions or difficulties, then please reach out to myself or Nick. We're always willing to jump in and help out in anything you've got regarding App Studio. So I'm just going to share my map back again, if I can find it. Let's see. Okay, can you see that, Nick?
Coming through? Come up. Yep.
Right. I've just seen a late question there. My chat window is closed, so bear with me just a second. Yeah, the question was, if I built an app for a customer, does the customer need a license?
No. If you've built it and you're just charging them to use it, then all they need to do is install App Studio. They don't need to have a license.
Yeah, I think I'm about to cover a little bit of that now.
Yeah.
Okay, so great webinar there, Nick. That's I'm sure that's caused quite a lot of stimulation for the people. So just looking at license types now, and this will probably answer a few of the questions. So App Studios, it's one app, it's one installer, and when you install it unlicensed, it's basically the base add-in, and that allows people that you create apps for to be able to run those apps under the right conditions. So that's the lowest level, no license required, no payment required. The paid licensing versions that are available are in 3 sets. So we have an App Studio personal license. So that would be if you wanted to use App Studio to build your own apps on your own system that you didn't need to share with anyone, and they were purely really for your personal use. That would be the license type that you would come in up there, the entry level. The second level is the corporate license. That's really where you can use App Studio to develop apps which you can have users in your organization run with the free base add-in, provided they're in the same email domain. Am I right in that, Nick? Have I
That's
explained that
right. Yeah.
correctly?
Yes.
So as long as the email address you're using within the MindManager application under the MindManager options, if that is, you know, tomjones@acme.com, and you create an app within that email domain with a corporate license, then anyone who has the acme.com setting in their MindManager can run that app with the base adding at no extra cost. So from a company purchase perspective, the company only needs to buy one corporate license, and everybody else can run that app free of charge. There's no additional cost on that. And the final license is the consultant license. And at this level, basically, this enables you to create apps which you can then share with anybody. So anyone at all can actually use those. You can build installers, send those off to anyone with MindManager, and away they go, with again with the base app. So there's no cost to them for that app. I think I've got that right, haven't I, Nick? There's
Yeah,
nothing
that's
else.
perfect. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So
So
this,
sorry, just to add to that, with the personal license, you can't create installer maps. With the corporate and
correct,
consultant
yeah.
license, it unlocks the features for creating installer maps.
Yeah, so I think the basis of that is really that with the personal license, because it's for you on your own system, you wouldn't need to install the app yourself anyway. You'd just be
So
using it with the configuration
that's
map.
right. Doesn't mean you
Um,
can't install somebody else's. It just means you can't
exactly.
create an installer for your own apps.
Sure, sure. But on the other two, where you'd like to be able to distribute those apps and update them and make that
Yeah.
process quite streamlined and quick, then you are able to generate the installer map, which is what you then just distribute to
Yes.
the people with the free
Yes.
add-in, and then they can just click that and it will install or even update an existing add-in if you've made changes to that.
Yeah.
I've got another quick question came in here. I think we've already had this one, but it was if you built an app for a customer, need the customer a license, and that's no, the customer just
That's
needs
right.
you to be
Yeah.
able to send them that installer map, and they'll be able to run that with the free base add-in.
Yes.
Um, and Rennie has asked, can you link to MindManager API and macro resources?
Yes. Yes. So you can invoke macros, and then that just runs a MindManager macro, and that can access the MindManager API, automate MindManager, or access stuff on your disk or network or whatever. So anything that you can do in a macro can be launched from an App Studio button.
Excellent. Okay, so next actions. Obviously, the map that you're looking at now, we're going to email out to everyone who's attended, so you'll have this. Inside this map, you'll find information about the App Studio trial. This is the App Studio personal developer license that we provide. It's a 30-day license, and you can request that. The best way to do it is through the Olympic website. There's a link here to the App Studio page on the right-hand side. If you go down the menu and you use the Request App Studio trial, that'll come through to me. The license keys are manufactured individually on request. So because they're tied to the email address of who's requesting them, obviously we generate those and get them back to you. So it might take about 24 hours for me to get that to you, but we'll do it as quickly as we can. So that's the best way to request a trial. Also, Nick, as Nick mentioned earlier, there's the App Studio app that he was showing you this evening. That's attached in this map as well. So there will be a link for it, which we'll put in an email. But as I say, when you get this map, that's already enclosed in here. So if you install App Studio and then you open this map, you should start to see it install as happened in Nick's demonstration. The other thing that's relatively new, we've started it, it's very sparse at the moment, but we're trying to create an App Studio community. So we have a bulletin board system, and there's a link to that on this map. You can see the image of that there. This is the place where hopefully as the App Studio community grows, we'd like people to put in suggestions or problems that they're coming across or questions and things like that. And Nick and I will be monitoring this so that we can jump in and reply to that. So we can build up a knowledge base between app studios around the world to help people get the best out of this this new solution. So do try and have a look at that. I did an App Studio overview video recently. Unfortunately, the image quality was not too good on it, but it does give perhaps a little bit more depth of how you can go around creating an App Studio app, and I think it probably gives you a bit more view of some of the App Studio menus and settings and how those are applied. So that's always worth having a look at. So there's a link to that YouTube video there. As I said before, support, there's a developer guide for App Studio. I've put a link to the online version of that in here, and that will give you tutorials and download links for extension apps for App Studio and reference information. It's very comprehensive. Nick spent a lot of time on it. It's very detailed, and if you spend some time with that, it will undoubtedly speed up the process of you creating your own apps. Again, sales support and technical support, please reach out to me at Olympic. My email address is in this map at the top. I know many of you have already been communicating with me over the years anyway. But if there's anything sales related or just problems with installing or getting the downloads or anything like that, then please reach out to me and I'll do my best to help with that. Both Nick and I are quite happy to deal with any application support that you need, as I previously mentioned. So again, our contact emails are in this map, so please let us know if you've got problems and we'll see what we can do to help you speed up your experience. And on top of that, as Nick mentioned as well, both myself and Nick can do app development and macro development services for you. So if there's something that you'd like to do, maybe if you'd like to build an app but you're not sure or you're getting stuck at a certain point, then feel free to reach out for us. I mean, there will be paid services, but we charge reasonable rates, and we understand that everything's tight for everybody around the world at the moment. So if you have something like that, if you do have a requirement, then let us know and we'll see if we can help you out with that. And finally, next webinar, as I say, date is really to be announced, but it'll probably be sometime in the 2nd or 3rd week of February. This time the time will be at 1500 hours GMT, so it'll be a little bit more favourable for those of you in Europe, and also hopefully it will hit people in the US as well, so that might be a better time. And the format of that, as I say, it'll be interactive, so we'll have you'll be able to open your mics and ask specific questions about problems you're having or things that you might want to try and do but you're struggling with how to actually accomplish that, and Nick and I will be on hand to talk you through that, and that can be a webinar that will run as long as the people that are attending it need the advice, but what we probably do is try and keep that to a smaller attendee level, so that obviously it's more manageable and everyone gets good value out of it. So I think if there's quite a demand for that, then obviously we'll be running 2 or 3 of those, so that everyone gets a chance to join those as they come along. So I think that's it. That's all from me. I don't think I've missed anything, have I, Nick?
No, just like to say thank you to you, Nigel, for getting this all set up and making it run so smoothly. It's there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes in these things, so I just had to show up and click some buttons. Nigel made it all run smoothly, so thank you for that, and thank you to everybody who's attended, who's given up an hour today. I really appreciate that, and we look forward to staying in touch with you.
Absolutely, and we very much want this to be something where there is a lot of communications going backwards and forwards between both us as the salespeople and the developers behind the product with you, the users, so that we, as you say, we can create a community. Because I think that this is it's very, very early days, but I think people can see the potential that this possibly has of really extending MindManager. And I think the more that you dig into it, I know that I found that the more I used it, the more it sort of opened up a new avenues of thought in my mind of what we can do with this. So anyway, that's it for today. We have recorded this. I think I might have missed the first minute and a half because I forgot to click the button, but there you are, lesson learned, won't happen again. And hopefully I'll have the recording up by late PM sometime tomorrow. Everyone who's attended, I will send you a personal email with links to that video, to the video of this, and also this map as well, so that you'll be able to get started with App Studio in your own ventures. And as I say, if you have any problems at all, then Nick and I are always on hand to try and sort those out. So reach out if you do feel stuck. Don't feel overwhelmed with it. We're here to help. So on that note, I'd just like to thank everyone for your time. I knew it was a late one today, but thank you for sticking with it. And I really hope that we can talk soon in more depth about how you're getting on.
Brilliant. Thanks a lot again.
Thank you.
Thanks. Bye-bye.